Good morning. Like I said, I'm Henk Hoff. I'm living here in the Netherlands. I've been active. I'm the secretary of the OpenStreetMap Foundation. I'll come to that a little bit later. And I'm working with Jetstream as a product manager and solution architect. All kinds of streaming media, kind of fancy kind of stuff. I have an own freelance consultancy firm, Globetrotter, and I will speak so here and there, and well, that's me. Enough of me. Let's go to OpenStreetMap. Who has heard? Well, who has never heard of OpenStreetMap? Oh, good. Because a couple of years ago, there's several hands coming up, and especially in a group like this with geo-related or GIS-related people. It's good that you all know OpenStreetMap. OpenStreetMap is basically a user-generated map. This is what makes us different from all the other map providers like TeleAtlas, Navtec, well, you name it. The user-generated map. Also, other map providers do claim they have some kind of crowdsourcing, but crowdsourcing and a user-generated map is something different. User-generated map is that people are actually editing the map themselves. Crowdsourcing is that you use all kinds of sources together and distillate or make a map out of it. If, for instance, TomTom is saying, we are a crowdsourced map, yeah, but that's because they have all those sat-navs running around, driving by people, and they collect some data, which they apparently magically upload without people basically knowing, and they generate all kinds of things of it. Well, that might be crowdsourcing, but most of the people do not really interact with the map and making things happen. So user-generated map is really the user is actually, by complete sanity, I hope, editing the map. Well, the basic idea of OpenStreetMap is that everybody, like here, is... I spoiled it. Basic idea of everybody just kind of running around. This is a video of a courier company in London, and you see there's all kinds of cars and just driving around and doing all kinds of things. Nobody is at the same time at the same place, and everybody is going somewhere different. And that makes it interesting for us and for also making or creating a map. Well, I'm guessing that not many of you have actually seen this thing before. If I'm wrong, well, it's not really. So let me just quickly do it again, because I really like this video, and hopefully I can talk a little bit faster. If you already think that I'm talking fast, wait a minute now. So just let me explain you what you've been seeing, because it is really cool. Again, London courier company. You see the time going. It's around now midnight, and people are getting into town. It's at midnight. People are going home, sleeping. In the morning, they're going into town. You have a break. Everybody's going to work at the afternoon. They're going into the pub, and at midnight, they're all going home. Going to sleep. In the morning, they get back into town. They have a weekend or an afternoon break, that kind of thing. It is actually pretty cool. Well, that's what you can do with it. But the more interesting thing, what we're interested in, if you just collect all the data and layer it on top of each other, you kind of get sort of a map. And that's the principle of what we're working on. Is everybody kind of collects their own kind of idea of where they are. You can regenerate a map without actually buying one. But if you would only do that, it takes quite a lot of time to actually create a map. So we also use other sources, and that's aerial imagery. You've just seen before the thing that you saw an aerial imagery of Bing. Bing, you know, the other search engine. But we're allowed to be able to use aerial imagery from Bing to trace over roads, streets, and all kinds of POIs. That makes it a lot easier in deserted places to actually also generate some maps. The only problem is you don't know any street names and that kind of thing, but in a desolated place, actually knowing that there is a street is already valuable information. And the idea is of a user-generated map. If you are driving somewhere, you see something wrong on the map, you can change it, or you can add something. Also, open other data sources. That's most of the time it is governmental data sources, and you see now a trend in Europe that more and more mapping agencies are opening up their data sources. You've seen it in the UK with the Ordnance Survey. You also now see it in the Netherlands and many other European countries, kind of stimulated by the Inspire initiative of the European Union to make the public available geodata free available to actually make things happen. We sometimes do get data donations from commercial companies. The most important one, or the most notable one, was in 2007 of AMD, the little of the three mapping companies, and this one is also based in the Netherlands, who actually gave their map of the Netherlands of 2007 to us to kind of play around with. And to be frank, I'm not really sure that they're actually happy with it now, because, well, I think they've kind of created their own biggest competitor. But we don't mind. Anyways, OpenStreetMap. There is something like a foundation and a community. The community is way much more important than the foundation, so let me start with the foundation. Foundation. Here you see a couple of people who are actually the board of the foundation. One person is missing, couldn't be there at the time. But the foundation is a group of people, and everybody, by the way, everybody is a volunteer. We don't get paid, well, not by the OpenStreetMap Foundation, and we do all of this in our spare time. So the board is, well, the board of the foundation, it is elected by its members, which is not the community, but you can become a member of the OpenStreetMap Foundation to support the project. So the OpenStreetMap Foundation is for actually the legal entity that represents the project. So if people are having problems with OpenStreetMap because they're, I don't know, doing what, they should not, they don't need to go to every individual mapper who's doing, who's actually working on the project. They can come to the OpenStreetMap Foundation and they can sue the OpenStreetMap Foundation. Not that it's happened very regularly, but it's that kind of thing. So we are the legal representative of the project. We also have servers. So all the servers that are needed to run the project, we own them, we buy them, we update them, well, whatever, we are going to do it. And we are the official publisher of the OpenStreetMap database. So we're not an owner of the data, that's not what we are. We still see that everybody who contributes to the OpenStreetMap project still owns their own data, but the database, the collective, is a new kind of database, a new kind of entity, and the OpenStreetMap Foundation is the official publisher. So we are also dealing with licensing information, all kinds of other stuff that is related to the whole project. The OpenStreetMap Foundation is not so much kind of controlling what's going to get into the database and what's all done that. We see that as something like the community needs to do. It's more that the community of the foundation does things to make the project running, and so that everybody in the community can just go out and map and do their fun kind of stuff. We do the boring stuff, the annoying, the irritating stuff, so that everybody else can do innovative, new kind of things. If you want to know everything about the OpenStreetMap Foundation, we also have our own website, foundation.org. Most interesting thing of the foundation itself is the structure itself, because it's not only the board. The board is just it's the person who are officially legally responsible. So if everything fails, they can actually sue me as well, because I'm one of the official board members. What's interesting is we have several working groups. You see them at the bottom. That is the license working group, the operations working group, the communication working group, the engineering working group, the data working group, the strategic working group, and the local chapters working group. And if you follow them from left to right. All kinds of working groups, people are active, just volunteers are active in all kinds of things related to the project itself. And they meet every week, every 2 weeks, depending on the frequency of their working group. Most of the time, either on IRC, that's kind of an old school chat network for those people who don't know what IRC is, or we have telephone conferences. Well, if you have all the working groups, there is also kind of a management team. It sounds way much more woohoo than it actually is, because it's mainly the chairs of every working group are kind of getting together and kind of getting things, comparing things or comparing notes. What are you busy with? So that, for instance, the communication working group can communicate about things that are going on in other working groups. So, well, that's the boring stuff. Let's go to the more fun stuff, which is the community. This is a picture of last year, our annual conference, the State of the Map. This is a picture of the people who were actually there. And State of the Map is just our own OpenStreetMap conference run by OpenStreetMap. It's not all of the community. It will be a little bit. It would be really awesome to have a huge community there, but it's just only a fraction of it. Community. Why is it so important, or why is it different, a community different from kind of a working environment? I see that more as a community factor. So it's not so much, you don't see things that we do with OpenStreetMap as work. You kind of see it as fun. If you don't have not so much inspiration in doing anything, well, you just don't do it. It's work, well, you need to go to work. If you're having a rough day, too bad, you need to go to work. If you're feeling sick or have a rough day, or, I don't know, have a row with your partner, and if you don't want to do anything with OpenStreetMap, fine. It's about fun. It's about making your life a little bit more rewarding. So not profit is the driving factor, but it's reward. That you actually get rewarded for what you've been doing. I attribute something, I bring something to the map, and I see people using it. And I see people feeling happy about it. They go, oh, that's a good map. And I say, oh, yeah, that's my little street that I've entered into the OpenStreetMap kind of thing. Cool. And it's not so much me as I did everything, but is we as a collective, we can make things happen. And what we can make happen are some interesting things of interesting places. Well, for instance, Baghdad. I'm not sure if you've been there, but so for all you know, this might be the correct map. Well, I can assure you, Baghdad is a little bit more streets than only these kind of few. So if you look at Google, you'll find this. But if you look at OpenStreetMap, you find a little bit more information on the city itself. It started actually with some Americans who kind of casually were strolling into the city a couple of years ago, casually, and added some streets in it. And it is interesting to see the local community, also the local people, also attributing or contributing to the map itself, because all the kind of Arabic letters, I really kind of think that the foreign tourists, let me put it this way, that were there did not really know those kind of names. So they were actually added, so that makes it interesting itself. Well, another very popular holiday spot is North Korea. Well, according to Google, there's not much there. But if you look at OpenStreetMap, yes, there is a little bit more there, although we also know that it's not everything there. But we actually have a map. And I think, I'm not completely sure, but looking at what I've heard from the United Nations, we have the most comprehensive map of, for instance, Pyongyang. There is not any other map available, well, except from the DPRK of North Koreans itself, but then you got, well, it's a little bit whether you can trust it or not. A little bit closer to home, a little bit more funny here, is the zoo in Berlin. This is one of the first kind of off-street things. The local community in Berlin or in Germany were a little bit crazy and fun to actually do. What else can we do with a map? And it just basically mapped the whole zoo. So if you want to go to the gorillas or the elephants, you can actually look at it from your home, where they are and how to walk there. So you can actually, what the most interesting kind of thing is, you can build a routing mechanism. How do I get from the elephants to the gorillas as soon as on the shortest kind of thing? So you can make an app out of it, if you have that data, and you have it now. So it makes it interesting. The Netherlands thought, oh, we can also do that. So they've also mapped the artist zoo of Amsterdam. Well, funny, interesting kind of thing. Community. It's all about growth, and the more the merrier. You've also seen it with Wikipedia. At some point you have like a tilting phase of you have enough people to actually make the next thing happen. And if you now see it on OpenStreetMap, we still see a upcoming, I have to go this way, still steep curve of growing curve. So we've almost so we've passed the 600,000 registered users, and we're still climbing in the same kind of pace that we did just before, or even climbing even further. That makes a kind of a stress to the project itself, because we need to grow faster and faster, and also facilitate service and that kind of thing. But that's what the foundation needs to do. The mappers don't need to worry about it. Interestingly, if you talk about numbers, yeah, right, 600,000 or 650,000 users, but they're not always entering, doing all kinds of things in the map itself. You're absolutely right. So there's also statistics on how many of these people are actually editing the map. And you see that it is roughly, well, 4%, 4-5%. 4-5% of 600,000+ people is still quite a lot. So it is it is a still ever growing number of people, and hopefully kind of steady amount of people actually working on it. That makes it very interesting. And yesterday we've reached our 1.8 billion node in our database, and the 12 million edit that is done in our database. So every edit is logged. Excuse me. Every edit is logged, and you can see. So actually, 12 million edits have been done. And if you look at the points that are in the database, I would kind of say, well, try to write down 1.8 billion nodes. It is vastly big. If you look a little bit about the statistics about the Netherlands, that's all about the statistics I want to show you. You see about 50 daily users who are editing the map of the Netherlands, just that little small country you're in. 50 users daily basis, and you see that there's about 3,000 to 4,000 nodes created every day, and as much edited or changed. So there is a lot of things going on. What really triggers people is not, I've told you about the community factor. Really triggers people is freedom. The OpenStreetMap database is an open database. We don't force you, we don't tell you what you can put in the database. Everything is possible. So, and we also try to stimulate creativity. What you feel interesting, what you see is interesting to put in the database, please do it and make something out of it. If you really want to put benches in there, everywhere in the park, please do. And if you then think, well, benches are interesting because then I can create a routing mechanism for the elderly So I can put a nice stroll. So I can also put a nice stroll that I have in every 500 meters at least a bench, so they can rest. It might be interesting to have benches in there. So please put things in. It is an open structure. Everything can and will be done. And that kind of freedom is very important for what we can do. Also about adventure. It is like Dan said. I've started mapping my own town, and it's interesting that while mapping, you come into places in my own town that I've never thought they existed before. If I saw an alley, and well, normally I just pass it by, but I saw that it was on the map. I just went in there and just looked where it went to actually get it on the map. And I got to very interesting hidden gems in my own city. It is a kind of adventure close at home or far away. I made this picture while I was on holiday in Alaska, and don't you really want to know where that road is leading to? I would. Not going to tell you. It's not that exciting. But it's also fun. It's just going things, and although, well, fun is a kind of relative factor, I've also heard from some of our mappers whose relation was not really that solid, that departments always kind of thought, hey, that mapping is a cool thing. That they're more time saying, well, are you really going to do another kind of tour? But the most interesting thing is that instant gratification. It is the kind of thing, I put something in the map, I edit something, and it's directly edited or available in that map. I don't have to wait a year, or I don't have to wait half a year it to be processed. No, if I edit it in the map, it's instantly available. And you see it when we generate the map on OpenStreetMap.org. You just have to wait a couple of minutes before the renderer has re-rendered the map. You see your edit on the map itself. That is rewarding. That is what also people feel and see, like, hey, this is interesting. I can add something, and I really can see the difference in it. The most interesting kind of thing of making it happen is what we also stimulate is new innovative things. New kind of maps, new kind of things, how you can look at things. One of the most interesting kind of things is a typographical map. It's not, well, just get rid of all the lines, but make lines out of the words itself. It is a totally different approach. It looks cool. It might not be very functional, but it's not that effort, but everything needs to be functional. But it's thinking out of the box, thinking differently. And if really are the gamers under you, Nintendo gaming, you can actually do it on a real map if you want to do it. There are all kinds of other specialty mapping. This is kind of a hiking map. Of the Netherlands, a hiking map is looking at a map on a different kind of way. It is rendered differently. The motorways are kind of in a grey kind of thing, and hiking trails or walking trails are more prominent on the map, because that is what the map's for. So there are different kind of ways to look at a map, and the same kind of thing for OpenCycleMap. Cycleways is more prominent on the map itself, but mapping itself is good. You also have routing services, and there's another kind of routing service. But routing itself, well, it is commodity. You get it free on every smartphone. More interesting is specialty routing, wheelchair routing, for instance. It's not your average. It's not the usual kind of pedestrian mapping or cycle mapping or routing, because wheelchairs, well, they tend to follow the pedestrian paths or the footpaths, but at some point you have those kind of barriers where a wheelchair cannot pass, or pass with big difficulty. That's the interesting kind of things you need to know. Or if a curb is too high from the street itself, so it can't go off and on the curbs, need to know where those things are. And that's for wheelchair users very, very valuable information and making their own kind of things. And the most interesting thing about this is wheelchair users can attribute the information themselves. So they can help each other making routing, making going from A to B more effective. Not everything needs to be on a map. If you feel a little bit, if you have done a lot of mapping and you feel a little bit cold, there's also blankets with find your own spot. Microsoft Bing has embraced OpenStreetMap. You can also use now an OpenStreetMap layer on the Bing map if you want to. MapQuest has now an open.mapquest.com, which has an API of using the OpenStreetMap map on your website. So you have a Google Maps kind of thing, but then with MapQuest, based on OpenStreetMap maps. You can use that in your own kind of thing. If you're a Foursquare enthusiast, yes I am. You can check in on Foursquare, and Foursquare now uses OpenStreetMap maps on their website. Unfortunately, not yet on their mobile apps. And also Apple in the iPhoto app. So we're not talking about the iOS 6 release recently, but hey, you never know. But at least if you use the iPhoto app on as well your desktop or your iPad, it uses OpenStreetMap data to place your photos on. Well, wait a minute. This is the wrong one. I should have hit it. Okay, the world is changing, and how a community can make it happen, how a community can make more power in it. A couple of years ago, you had in Haiti a very heavy earthquake, about now, and it was devastating. And you can see here that a lot of people, every white spot is an edit on the map. So if the time progresses, just a couple of days, you see a lot of people actually editing on the map. We've been provided with the latest aerial imagery from several sources, and they gave it for free. And that's the way how people can actually help building the most accurate, the most up-to-date map. Because if you have an earthquake, all the maps that you have are instantly not really valid anymore. Because you don't know which roads are still open. But also, what we've also used is lots of destroyed buildings, but also refugee shelters, water places, emergency hospitals. Everything was put on the map. And we know from the Red Cross that they've actually very, very intensively used our map source for the most up-to-date data. So they can go to places and give most effective help. And that made it for also the community to not only give money, but actually also help from their ethic and just editing on the OpenStreetMap kind of thing. Last year, also tsunami, earthquake, Japan. This is Sendai, which is one of the largest cities who's hit the heaviest. This is of the day of the earthquake, and immediately after that, a lot of people worked on the map, and the yellow lines are checked within 24 hours after the earthquake of editing and checked again. And if you look at a day later, basically the whole city was kind of checked again on whether streets were available or not. And then you see maps like this of, for instance, a nice airfield, but it's not usable anymore because it's completely underwater. And these are the kind of interesting information that you need to have to actually have a very good way of emergency help. And we also know from people in Japan that they've actually used this kind of information also from OpenStreetMap to give the latest information to the local population and the help kind of thing. But it's not only that there's natural disasters and that kind of thing, it's also the way we look at the world. So mapping unexpected places. In Africa, there's a lot of, well, discovery still to do. This, for instance, is Nairobi in Kenya, which is, well, an interesting city, but the most interesting thing in Nairobi is that it has a very large slum. Slums are not really interested in commercial kind of way, so most of the maps don't have them. We have Kibera. It is mapped with help from the people in the slum itself, and they've all the roads in there, but also the pubs. There are pubs in the slum, places where you can get fresh water, all kinds of other kind of things is put on the map. It is a kind of little city in a bigger city itself. And the most interesting thing of having a map and putting it on the map is that you can talk with the people itself on, for instance, to women, where do you feel not very comfortable during the night, or where do you feel threatened during the night? And they can point out the map, well, these are the areas. So it is a way of communicating, and basically what I most of the time say, well, if it's not on the map, it doesn't exist. So putting places on the map makes it worth interestingly, or make people aware of where they are. But it's well, as you probably know, that GIS and mapping is not the most easiest thing to do. We also need to make it very easier for people. There are several desktop editors available for OpenStreetMap, but they do have a kind of steep learning curve. Also, Esri is sponsoring or is stimulating OpenStreetMap, and their own editor, the ArcGIS, has now a plugin for OpenStreetMap, so you can edit and see OpenStreetMap things. And they actually have an iPhone app available for looking at OpenStreetMap maps. Ooh, good. Talking about iPhone, smartphones is the most interesting kind of way of collecting data, but it is differently than the complete editor. So you see all kinds of specialty mapping things available. Just POI, just put there's a restaurant here, or there's a speed limit here. That's the most interesting kind of things that we need. And it is kind of a low threshold to keep people busy with OpenStreetMap. But really the most interesting thing I've found is gaming and collecting data. A German company, Scobbler, made Address Hunter. It's a game, well, you can see as a multiplayer or a single player. You have all kinds of characters. This is the Vagabond. That's so you're an early starter. So if you use to play the game way much more, you can become I don't know which kind of stages you all have, but it is kind of, there's a game kind of. So you play with a lot of people, a few people, and you have to like a scavenger hunt for addresses. This is the list of the addresses that they've got, and they've actually get those addresses from actually people wanting or to look for the address on their routing app. So they use real-time queries to actually find it, because these are addresses that people have looked for on the OpenStreetMap map, and they collect them and they say, hey, we couldn't find this address, and we'd like you to hunt it. And we kind of know where it is in your general area. So you have a kind of thing, and well, what you need to do is just go to the address, take a picture of the house number, and with taking a picture, you also geolocate that photo, because the smartphone has a GPS in it. So when you take this photo, you know where the photo was taken, and therefore you know where the address is. And well, the person who has captured the most addresses is the winner. Yoo-hoo! But in the meantime, you've collected data for us to make addressing more and more important. Well, what we say free, we actually mean free. Free in licenses is the most kind of thing. You have all different kind of licenses if it comes to free. Well, if you have software, the GPL, BSD kind of licenses of here's free, and oh, by the way, you also need to free up your sources, yes or no, or the actual code. If you have content, photos, and that kind of thing, you have Creative Commons stack, and if you have data, you have the CC0, the Creative Commons 0, and the ODBL. So look at the things that you have and select a license accordingly. What we as OpenStreetMap have is currently we have CC BY Z, Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike, but we're in a transformation to the Open Database license. Well, there's a whole story behind why and what, that I'll skip that. But the most interesting thing is if you want to use OpenStreetMap data, and please do, there's several things you can do. Free is you're free to use it, you may share it, it's no problem. You can create all kinds of things with it, and you may also adapt it or change it to whatever kind of thing. So it is basically their data. Please do everything that you want with it. And we're happy with whatever you do. But, there's always a but. Since OpenStreetMap was actually started as a result, because most of the data was commercially, well, was not freely available, we want to open up things. One of the things that we ask you to do is attribute. So mention that the data is from OpenStreetMap. Well, that's not that difficult. The share alike is more of if you use our data and you have mapping data or something similar yourself and you want to mix it, well, if you use our data, which is done by hard work of volunteers and we give it to you freely, we also like you to give your data freely to us or the world itself. So it is kind of a way to open up more data. And of course, keep it open. It needs to be, the data needs to be free and open, available. And this way, we kind of hopefully will get these kind of like free baskets of all kinds of interesting stuff. And you can stack down on top of each other and make it freely available. Well, quality, I think that's going to be the last thing that I'm going to touch really quick is there's a lot of people now kind of say, well, OpenStreetMap, crowdsourcing, or user-generated, I'm not really sure. There's a lot of research also done. One of the researchers, Mookie Hagley of the University of Central London, has said, I think it was last year or maybe at least 2 years ago, it is just good quality. It is good enough to do the basic stuff that you want to do with data. Well, that may be one source. You've probably heard of another source, that is our nice friends here in Amsterdam, TomTom, who basically say, well, yeah, open data, well, can you really trust them? Well, there are several criticisms that they're done. Well, first of all, mapping errors can be extremely dangerous, so you need to be very, very careful, and you can't just do any work, and you can't just let anybody just edit maps, because before you know it, death and destruction and that kind of thing. Yes, that's what we heard. So TomTom only delivers quality data, like we see. No. So even a commercial company has troubles with their own quality. And the problem with TomTom is, if there is an error in the map, you have to wait for the next map update in half a year, or maybe later, to fix it. And I've heard several people say, well, I've mentioned an error in their map, and it takes about 2 years for them to actually fix it. I've used in my presentations for a very long time an example of my own hometown, or my actual spot that I was living in. Unfortunately, I had to remove it beginning of this year because they finally fixed it. But it was kind of fun to actually be able to use it for more than 2 years, and it was a place where they have 8-9 errors within a square kilometers. Really big mistakes. So TomTom, even commercial companies, don't have the highest quality, like 100% quality. And the fun with OpenStreetMap is, if you find an error, you can fix it right on the spot, right at the time, and from that point on, everybody sees the biggest, the latest question. And another kind of thing is, well, yeah, it is kind of all kinds of pedestrian kind of things, and all geometry is kind of mixed together, so it is just one big, well, pile of, I don't know, but it is that kind of thing that makes OpenStreetMap so flexible. We do see, we are not only focusing on car navigation, we really want to have pedestrian maps, or pedestrian roads in it. We really want to have tracks in a forest in it, so walking trails and that kind of thing. We really want to have that kind of thing in it. It makes the database maybe complex, but it's not that they're not there. So, well, it might be seen as a problem, but I would basically say, well, you want to use your brain as well instead of only relying on your SatNav. Last kind of thing, future. If you look at all this, where is it going to? Well, you see, OpenStreetMap from way in the past, when it started, it was, well, it was free, and we didn't have that much, and the quality was pretty much low in the early beginning. But the quality has gone up. And you also see that then, as time progresses, if we go up in quality, the other commercial data providers need to go down in price. You've seen it, AMD, TomTom, Navtech, they've all significantly decreased its prices. Where have we seen that before? Well, here, Linux, Windows. In the early days of Linux, it was a kind of great kind of thing, and Linux went up in quality, and Windows got down in price. Another example is Wikipedia and Encyclopedia Britannica, who actually knows Windows Media. Encyclopedia Britannica, because it's basically gone. It's only Wikipedia. And we might think, and I think, that OSM is that kind of thing that Navtech, we can say goodbye to them in a couple of years. TeleAtlas, well, you never know. AMD, I don't know. But OpenStreetMap is there to stay, because that's where the collective people are working on the map to make the map the most effective, the most up-to-date, and the highest quality map available. And that's what OpenStreetMap is about. If you want to know some more information, these are my contact information, and to get in touch. All kinds of information on OpenStreetMap.org, OSM-Foundation.org. We have a wiki with loads of information, and if you want to have more information, there's several mailing lists with special interest, and of course the famous IRC, which you can chat with lots of people within the community. Thank you for your attention, and if there's any questions, I'm not sure if there's